Have you ever been afraid of being replaced? That one day somebody will just find a better version of you that can perform all the same tasks as you? It's a pretty inherently terrifying concept, existentially speaking. I mean, it's one of the scariest things about getting old. In a lot of cases, people perceive younger people as being inherently better. We see the same concern surrounding automation, the most obvious parallel being the old folktale about John Henry, a story about someone desperately working to not be replaced by machines. A character who is replaced by something else as a representation of our own fears of our own identities being threatened is a very old narrative. Something you don't see nearly as often, though, is a narrative about a character whose identity is unstable not because their life is being threatened by the creation of a new thing seeking to perform the same role as them, but because they were the thing created to perform the same role as someone else or fit into that slot. A character whose entire existence is based around living up to the existence of another, a bundle of insecurities. It's interestingly explored in the webcomic Homestuck, which is about the most praise I'll ever give to that work. Dave Sprite, an artificial clone of the character Dave, spends the entire comic looking for meaning outside of just being Dave. He eventually finds it by merging with another character to create a whole new entity, which allows them to be their own individual. It's a simple arc made silly by how dragged out everything in Homestuck is, but when I say it in a succinct way, the strong skeleton of it really gets to show. Video games in particular seem to be very fixated on this idea. I think it mainly has to do with asset reuse being such a common practice. Naturally, a lot of characters would be invented just as carbon copies in order to save on resources. Luigi was for a long time just a palette swap of Mario. Late game enemies in old JRPGs are often just recolors of bosses from early in the game. These parallels were created for the sake of budget, but eventually they grew from this into an artistic choice. Think Shadow the Hedgehog. His version of Sonic Society is completely unique from an assets perspective, but is intentionally designed in order to evoke everything about Sonic and turn it on its head. I mean, the two do have exactly the same gameplay, so that has to mean something. Shadow is contrasted with Sonic time and time again in Sonic Adventure 2's story, with the rivalry being one of the key focal points of the game. The final boss of both of the basic stories is a race between them, and they're mistaken for one another rather infamously. Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. Despite his apparent similarity to Sonic, Shadow's aloof demeanor allows him to never feel insecure about his position as someone similar to Sonic. He knows who he is. But Shadow also wasn't the first character to be based directly on Sonic in this fashion. In 1993, Sega released a game for the Sega CD known as, well, Sonic CD. In this, a new rival for Sonic came onto the scene, Metal Sonic. Metal Sonic is, in some ways, the simple asset retooling of Sonic. I'd argue he wasn't even super well utilized in this game. He's a fine enough boss fight, an interesting subtle reiteration of the John Henry parable when Sonic ends up racing him eventually. Man versus machine, one threatening to replace the other. It's not what Metal Sonic does in Sonic CD that I really appreciate though, it's his role in Sonic Heroes. Despite my feelings toward most of Sonic Heroes, Metal Sonic being revealed as the true mastermind behind everything has always been one of my favorite parts, because I think they really did a lot with the character. Metal Sonic's motivation in this game is clear. If he kills Sonic, he'll be the only Sonic left, thus making him the real Sonic. There will be nothing left for him to feel inferior to. Only him. I think this is a great evolution of the character because it invokes the terror of expectation and how we tie so much of our identity into what we're expected to be, that burdening people with the task of being somebody else entirely instead of allowing them to be their own person will break them. Metal Sonic sees nothing else in his life besides being a copy to Sonic. And that's what Eggman built him for, after all. So the fact that he will never truly be a perfect copy of Sonic eats away at him inside. With all the shit I give Sonic Heroes, this is one thing it nailed. The utter palpable desperation of Metal Sonic echoed through his cries in the final boss fight. Of course, there are also comedic ways you can take this archetype. The most obvious way is one that you can find in the Mario series' most infamous character, Waluigi. Waluigi was merely invented to give Wario a doubles partner in Mario Tennis. He's the purple bad version of Luigi, much like how Wario is the bad version of Mario. Unlike Wario, who exists as a criticism of Nintendo's corporate greed and iterative game design, which leads him going on his own adventures and having his own friend group, Waluigi spends most of his time resenting everything that Luigi is and also wanting to be exactly like him. It's funny in a sort of tragic way. Waluigi's entire life is chasing Luigi, wanting to be Luigi, and hating Luigi for being everything he's not. In almost every single game, Waluigi's description has to mention Luigi in some capacity. He doesn't exist as his own entity. He exists only as a reflection of Luigi. Insert that one copy pasta here. This motif echoes throughout video games in ways both large and small. Metal Sonic and Waluigi are probably the most notable to me, but Mewtwo comes in my thoughts sometimes as well. Though his personality isn't characterized as is in the games, in the anime he's incredibly jealous of Mew, with his constant mockery and several attempted murders of the pink fetus cat guy, but ends up coming around by the end of the first Wars movie in a touching scene. While as touching as a weird cat guy talking philosophy with a guy who can only say his name is anyway. I'm sure there are many other that I'm just forgetting. These kinds of characters are fascinating to me, maybe because that's how I feel sometimes, too. I often feel like a discount version of other YouTubers. Maybe I'm Metal Sonic, constantly chasing an ideal that I can never live up to. Or maybe I'm Waluigi, long abandoned by the world and angry at it for that. I enjoy these kinds of characters so much because I find their fears so relatable. I don't want to be replaceable. I don't want people to see my content as rote or interchangeable. I try very hard to stay interesting. Hopefully that's enough to be my own identity and not just a copy of another YouTuber. This has been Arcade Everlasting, who took 20 psychic damage for mentioning Homestuck, signing off. Thank you for watching.